Hey everybody, and welcome back to another Max Velocity weather forecast. And in today's forecast, we'll be breaking down another big severe weather event that'll take place in the southern plains this week. We'll also be discussing another winter storm that'll impact the Midwest and a big shot of cold air that'll impact almost the entire country. I'll give you the latest breakdown on all of these storms and more in this forecast, but let's first begin with what's happening across the United States today, beginning with the Northeast, which is where a nor'easter is currently ongoing, impacting areas in New England. This has brought upwards of already a foot of snow in some areas, and it will continue to dump snow over the next 12 to 24 hours before it quickly moves off to the north and east, eventually out to sea. Also back over to our west, we have a massive storm brewing just off the coast of California. This is a very impressive looking storm right now, pretty defined circulation as well, bringing a ton of rainfall to areas in California. This will be our next big storm across the Great Plains into the Midwest and as well as into the southern plains that'll bring the threat for a winter storm and eventually the threat for severe weather as we go into Wednesday through Friday. So this will definitely be something to watch for very closely. Otherwise, high pressure is dominating a large chunk of the country. You can see here over really the entire Mississippi Valley, there's hardly any clouds out there. That would be due to the fact there's really nothing in terms of precipitation, and again, high pressure dominating that region. So over the next few days, again, let's talk about the Northeast first. We'll be watching some heavy snow really for the most part over the next 12 hours. This will start to wind down to light snow that'll remain fairly isolated in nature. Once we get closer to Wednesday morning, that low pressure system eventually will start to move off to the east. Winds will still be fairly high over there. Wind gusts between 40 to 50 miles per hour, definitely possible. Our next storm that I'll be watching for, though, will be really beginning late Wednesday. This will be that low pressure system that's currently located over near San Francisco. It'll eventually move into areas in the northern plains, and this will develop into a pretty large storm that'll bring, again, severe weather and a winter storm. Meanwhile, high pressure, again, will be dominating across the eastern tier of the United States. By Thursday morning, that is when that low pressure system really begins to strengthen. Again, we'll be watching for the threat of severe weather, which I'll have more specific details on this in just a moment. And then further off to the north, that is where we'll be watching for the threat of some snowfall, which, again, some snowfall accumulation definitely can be possible out of that. And eventually going into Friday into Saturday, that low pressure system moves off to the east, and another very strong high pressure system will arrive by the weekend. This will bring a fairly strong cold blast to the United States, and it could very well bring below freezing temperatures as far south as Texas. I'll give you more details on that again in just a moment. Let's talk about the severe weather threat, though. Going into Thursday, there is currently a slight risk for severe weather for those in North Texas, back into Louisiana, and as well as into Arkansas. I plan to go live for this event, so make sure that you are subscribed down below and click the bell icon so you do get notified if I do go live. But for right now, the main concerns are damaging winds upwards of 70 miles per hour. Large to even maybe very large hail is not out of the question, and we'll also be watching for the threat of a few tornadoes. And you may be wondering, will we see any strong EF2 plus tornadoes in the southern plains on Thursday? For right now, I think that's on the lower end of things. I do think that there could be maybe a strong tornado, but this shouldn't be a full-blown tornado outbreak. And a big reason why is because if we look at the low-level jet, which is what helps to rotate these supercells a little bit higher up into the atmosphere, the low-level jet will be around 35 to 50 knots on Thursday afternoon and evening, which is when those storms are supposed to fire up and be severe. And in this case, that's not overly strong. It's kind of in the moderate stage of a low-level jet, and the tornado parameter values that are currently being forecasted are around 1 to 2, peaking at 3, which is still on the lower side of things in terms of a tornado threat. And again, this will likely be a bit more of a linear line of storms, which should help to limit the tornado threat some, but it will not be zero by any means. So keep that in mind and make sure you have a plan in place, especially for Thursday afternoon and evening. In terms of the instability, there will definitely be some instability. It will not be the highest we've ever seen, but values are currently going to be probably upwards of 1,000 to 2,000 joules per kilogram. That is plenty of instability for severe weather to occur on Thursday. So definitely some severe weather expected, at least damaging winds and large hail. In terms of the lapse rates, again, they will not be the highest I've ever seen. We should see a couple of storms with large hail, especially with these initial storms that form near the Metroplex. And I'll show you more on the timing here in just a second, but that should be the main area of concern in terms of hail out of this entire event. And dew points, there will be plenty of buoyancy out of this event as well. Dew points will skyrocket on Thursday afternoon into the mid 60s. So there will be plenty of humidity and again a lot of moisture to be able to create more buoyancy with these thunderstorms, be able to create more supercells that could very well provide again all threats of severe weather. Now when we look at the trampoline meter, this gives us an idea of how much damaging wind potential we have at an event like this. Could we see some trampolines flying? Well, right now that's on the medium risk of our entire scale. Usually that's around a slight to enhanced risk of severe weather when it comes to damaging wind. So right now it's on the medium risk. Make sure to secure those trampolines before this event does arrive. Now let's talk about the timing here across the southern plains, especially in North Texas. Beginning with Thursday afternoon, there may be a few showers, maybe an isolated elevated storm that may develop. This would not be severe by any means. Eventually, once we get closer to the late afternoon, right around 3 to 4 o'clock, if the cap does break, just keep that in mind, there might be a cap in place. That is a temperature inversion a little bit higher up in the atmosphere that prevents clouds from lifting. So if there's a cap in place, things may change a little bit, but if the cap is able to break, we'll start to see storms firing up across areas near Interstate 35W right around 3 to 4 o'clock on Thursday. Eventually getting closer to 5 to 6 o'clock, those storms move further off to the east, and by 7 o'clock, this will likely become a bit more of a line of storms. So it does seem to be like the more significant severe weather will be closer to the Metroplex, but again, things may change a little bit over the next few days. I'll have more details on the specific timing on this event tomorrow in our next forecast, so stay tuned for that. And obviously, there will be a big cool down coming to the United States, including areas like Texas. But beginning with the next 24 hours, there are freeze warnings in effect for Alabama, Georgia, South Carolina. It's pretty wild stuff. Obviously, we're getting pretty close to spring now, and you might be thinking, I thought winter was over. Well, it's not quite yet. We're going to have another cold blast here. Winter storm warning still in effect in the Northeast. Temperatures as we go into tomorrow morning will drop below freezing across a large chunk of the Southeast. That is all behind that nor'easter back up here into the Northeast. So that's why we're getting a lot of colder air ushering out of Canada with some very strong northerly winds. And for the rest of the United States, we'll be watching for a massive cool down, this weekend, really beginning with Friday afternoon and evening, but by Saturday morning and as well as Sunday morning, that is when the coldest air will be felt across the United States. There will be a big plume of cold air from anywhere from really the four corner states all the way back through the Northeast. Florida will likely luck out from this, but again, for those anywhere further north and west of Florida, you're likely to get below freezing in a lot of those areas. And over the next 6 to 10 days, from the 19th to the 23rd is when we'll be watching for likely seeing below average temperatures on average across a large chunk of the country. Thanks for watching. Make sure to hit the like button down below and subscribe if you've not already. This forecast is brought to you by Platinum Contracting.